The pandemic seems to be ending. I hope, Sir Joey, the pandemic seems to be ending, but some of its effects are expected to stay for long, if not permanent. Without a doubt, the crisis unfolded new ways of operating. As our theme for this year's conference centers on business continuity, we will try to dig for details and answers from our panelists on how we can better prepare and handle future disruptions. I'm sure that our discussion will ignite the interest of our attendees. Please make sure to send us your questions in the Q&A panel so that we can ask our panelists to answer them. Let me introduce and acknowledge our panelists. From Adobe, we have Sir Nelson John, the Senior Solutions Consultant, Digital Media, Adobe South Asia. From Alibaba Cloud, Jason Su, Lead of General Solutions and Ecosystem Solutions, Alibaba Cloud Intelligence. From Autodesk, we have Noah Arles, Technical Specialist for AEC Infrastructure, ASEAN, India, Australia, and New Zealand. We have from Dell Technologies, Ms. Pula Ladrillo, Business Development Manager, Client Solutions Group. From Fortinet, we have Frederick Lang Ong, Systems Engineer, Fortinet. And from HPE, Sir Joel Huzol, the Pre-Sales Manager, HPE Philippines. From HPE Aruba, Sir Tang Hui, Regional Category Manager, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Hong Kong and Macau. And from Huawei, Arnie Alvarez, CTO and IT Director, Enterprise Business Group, Huawei Philippines. Oracle, Evgeny Pozarski, the Director, Solutions Engineering, Hybrid Cloud Systems, Oracle, Japan and APAC. Trend Micro, Ulysses Liao, Senior Pre-Sales Consultant, Trend Micro. And VMware, Mr. Elmer Buong Lunaria, Staff Solutions Engineer, VMware Philippines. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Such a mix of intelligent panelists. I hope I'd be able to raise or rather ask you the right question. But let me begin with this question. I'd like Sir Joey to answer this. How has business continuity planning changed?
Well, if you take a look at the typical planning process in the past, let's call it the pre-pandemic era, you would do your planning based on historical data. You would do your planning based on what you've seen in the past, and you would do your planning based on the business history, which is why it's very difficult for like startup organizations to do any kind of continuity planning because they have no historical data. How it's changed is what I had highlighted in my short talk, is that you can no longer approach continuity planning in that manner. You now have to be more, shall we say, proactive, have to be more anticipatory, and you have to be more, I hate to use the term, thinking out of the box of not only the challenges, but the opportunities that may be there in the future that you have to factor into your plans. I think the analogy of the wartime situation where you come up with a plan that basically says we have to cross that bridge to get to our destination applies really well, because once you're in the war, that bridge may no longer exist and you have to come up with a different plan. What hasn't changed is that you have to get to the other side. So parang ganon, I think that's the main strategic difference in how people have to think. And I have to admit, it's a lot more challenging. People, especially mid-level managers, don't think that way. And it's really going to be hard to get them involved in business continuity planning as a result.
Thank you, Sir Joey. I would also like to acknowledge the panelists from Trend Micro. We have Christina Bautista. I thought it's Sir Ulysses Liao. Okay, so instead Christina Bautista is joined. Good morning. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Sir Joey. So medyo it's going to be a more difficult task for small organizations because they don't have data to refer to for business decision making. Sir Arnie, your thoughts, please. How have risks changed during this crisis?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mao. But first, probably I'd like to start with definitions, no? So one is there's been a lot of mix-up on business continuity with disaster recovery. So oftentimes people interchange them, but I think it's very important to define first. So for me, I see business continuity as keeping business operational during o habang nangyayaring disaster, while disaster recovery focuses on restoring data access and IT infrastructure after a disaster. So this is where technology normally focuses on. And for me, it's only by combining these two plans can businesses comprehensively prepare for disastrous events. So to your question, pre-pandemic, the main focus of BCP, business continuity planning, was essentially a workspace failure. Yeah, the place where people sit and work, just like me, I go to the office. What if the office is inaccessible? Usually we were thinking of disastrous events like fire, flood, earthquake, but the pandemic made people realize that further considerations should be made to BCPs. Kasi lockdown, we are not allowed to go out of our home. And a lot of people are saying, there's work from home naman, so it's an alternate site. For some people, yes, that may be possible, but not all businesses can completely work from home. So the pandemic aspects of BCP, which were previously like annexes or afterthoughts, are now becoming, this is what I see, are now becoming fully integrated with mainstream BCP. So workspace failure response still will continue to be prominent, but with greater representation on pandemic. So alternate sites, this is a last one. Alternate sites, a common BCM, business continuity management solution. Previously, a lot of customers used them for active operations, and it essentially was kept empty for training or storage. But now, what I see is a lot of people are repurposing them for mainstream operations during disasters. So what is happening is they are prioritizing areas of business which may work in parallel in both HQ and alternate sites.
Sir Arnie, sorry to cut you off, but having a business continuity plan is also critical to anticipate future disruptions, right? So it's not just while we are in the midst of disruption.
Yes,
Correct?
yes, essentially it is very important, and that is why, well, I call it contingency plans for high priority threats in corporate risk. So there is ITDR is just one of them. Pandemic plan is another. So for banks, they actually plan for bank runs. What if people start withdrawing their money? And for manufacturing, sometimes product recall plan. What do they do? So it goes beyond technology, Mao, when we talk about business continuity. But definitely planning is extremely important. We plan for it. And I think the pandemic helped us, as what Joey mentioned, I'll use the term again, think out of the box and how we can actually do things in a different way.
Yeah, in fact, during the opening of Sir Jimmy, he mentioned that pandemic is just, it's not the only form of disruption we can experience. We have the Ukraine and Russia war. Philippines, we sit in the ring of fire. We are regularly visited, I think 22 tropical cyclones in a year. So these are just some of the possible disruptions that might affect our businesses, all the more that we need to plan. I'd like to invite all our panelists to please feel free if you would like to comment or answer the question I raised a while ago. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Thank you so much, Sir Arnie. Anyone who'd like to answer, what are the components of a business continuity plan? Sir Joey mentioned a while ago on the four critical steps. But in a nutshell, can someone please share with us what makes a sound business, rather what makes a business continuity plan sound?
Hey, Mal, Noah here.
Yes,
Can I take a crack at this?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so for us, pretty much most of our customers are creating data day in, day out. So these are engineers and designers. So during that time of the height of the pandemic, it was a catharsis of sorts. And it made us realize that, or most of our customers realize that they need to have access to data. All right. So from a fundamental standpoint, it's being able to make decisions, and to make intelligent decisions, they need to have access to their data. So the work from home was just an eye opener for everyone, that for me to continue delivering construction projects, I need to have access to my data. And we're doing that right now by giving them a platform to be able to access their data, whether they're on the site, at the office, or maybe comfortable in their homes, right? So data is going to be one of the more fundamental considerations. Who gets access to it? When do you get access? And I think from a business continuity plan, if you can't access it from the office, how can you access it remotely to continue your work?
Thank you, Sir Noah, which brings me to this question. Remote work and the influx of online platforms have increased data access, as you mentioned a while ago. How has this challenged data security, and what strategies should organizations deploy to ensure continuous flow of data, and that data is available where and when it is needed?
May I have a crack at that? Because we
Yeah,
just happened to
sure,
be
sure.
developing
Please.
a plan for that. So you mentioned online platforms that allow people to basically work productively from home, right? So and for a long time, we were looking at the problem as a technology problem, like how do we make things better from a technology perspective? It turns out that the crux of the problem when it comes to data security is the human being themselves. It is the weakest link. And so educating the people became paramount to coming up with better technology solutions. If you know the typical picture that you see of a highly secure facility, and yet one of the users has their password on a post-it note on their monitor, that says it all. It is a HR, or you can call it a human resource problem. It is a people problem. So security starts with that. Anything else that we do from a management standpoint falls apart as soon as you have uneducated or unknowing, insecure people. That's my comment on that, because we've just had to deal with that recently, and it's really less of a technology issue than it is a human being issue. That's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you.
Can I contribute on that?
Go ahead, Sir Joel. Thank you.
Okay, from an HPE experience perspective, working with customers in the area of business continuity series, we look at commonly the triage of people, technology, and process. That's why the first step we offer customers, if they want to secure a business continuity plan, is first make an assessment of people, their capabilities, their culture, your processes. And then what technology do we have? Can we execute this business continuity plan with the technology that you have? Maybe you want something very ambitious, but you don't have the technology. You don't have the skill set, not even the process to roll it out. So the way we approach business continuity, we know technology is a part of it. If there's a need to acquire technology, the question is, how much the business willing to pay for the technology? You want to be protected, but do you realize the risks? Because if the business does not recognize the risks and it's not willing to pay for technology to fix it, you don't have any business continuity plan. That starts with where you locate your data center, whether you put up a disaster recovery with a co-locator provider or you put it on the cloud, whatever you do, the business has to be in it. Decide what to protect, how to protect, and who are the people that will work on that process. And then do a run, see if it can be done. That is the way HPE would look at it from our services and technology point of view in executing this business continuity plan. So sadly, in many of my customer engagement, they don't even have a process, a manual to refer to, because when things go haywire, people get rattled, people panic. If there's no manual that will guide them to control how they think, they will do the wrong things. And then you get a worse disaster than it started with. So that's my point of view, contribution.
All right. Thank you, Sir Joey. Do we have a toolkit that we can refer to, especially for small and medium enterprises? Just a guide so that we can, as technology enabler, we can really help the small and medium enterprises.
Now there are white papers available
All
on
right.
the internet that they can download. Some of them are generic. So if you want to thresh out the details, you need to get a consultant or probably a technology consultant at least to understand what is being instructed on the general purpose white paper for this. How do we crystallize them? That's where you need consultants to put in the detail.
All right. Thank
can I
you.
add something?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. To your question or to your inquiry on business continuity plan, no? Ito naman galing lang naman sa humble experience ko sa local industry natin.
Walang tatalo sa experience, sir.
Usually, when I talk to our clients, no, when I ask them about their business continuity plan, meron mga mixed replies dyan. Actually, iba alam nila kung ano yung business continuity plan because basically, it should be part of the full corporate governance, right? Hindi lang siya within the IT, business continuity plan. And that's circling back to Sir Arnie's point of view, right? Na hindi lang yan dapat IT, it should be part of the whole corporate governance. Hindi lang siya yung technology discussion din. It could be a lot of things, political, there will be political instances that a business continuity plan should be kicked in, right? And then as an after result, disaster recovery plan will kick in afterwards. Merong mixture na replies kasi iba ang interpretation nila. Yung disaster recovery plan is equals to business continuity plan, which is not right. Disaster recovery plan, to the point of Coach Joey nga kanina, na yung disaster recovery plan is just a component of the business continuity plan.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Parang business continuity plan is the mother, and disaster recovery is a component of the BCP.
Right. So that's just my may dagdag ko lang doon. And then to your more recent question kanina about security, the influx of remote work and online platforms now, how does it impact the security posture of our enterprise? Nowadays, it's very typical to have users working remotely from hundreds or even thousands of different locations, with workloads traversing different data centers, different multiple clouds, meaning yung possible attacks we face now are increasingly spread out. Yung attack surface, malaki, mas malapad ngayon. With everything dispersed and ever-changing, deployment and management of traditional agent technology to monitor yung environment it's becoming more difficult as well. Kokonte, very few organizations can keep up or even keep themselves current. The same applies for security controls used to protect those things, right? It's one thing to deploy thousands of firewall rules to on your infrastructure, moving out of your data center. But can you imagine managing those firewall rules changing daily on an ongoing basis? It would be hell. It would be very, very difficult, right? And finally, sabi ko nga kanina, you must consider all the different environments you must protect now, ranging from legacy data centers, private cloud, public clouds, different kind of platforms from VMs to containers and end user devices, desktops to mobile devices. So many things to consider. Now in VMware, I just want to mention, we are rightfully positioned to provide protection from workload, devices, users, and networks. We are focused basically on intrinsic advantage. You see, by delivering security from the very beginning that is distributed with your assets wherever they reside, you are protecting your remote users, you are protecting your workloads, and you are protecting your data centers, kahit ilan man yan, private cloud or private cloud, everything is spread out. But here's the thing, although yung security services mo will be distributed, you can still control these resources and manage your policies from a single location. That's the important thing. And as a result, protecting a distributed environment nowadays is not only possible, but it's also more practical. Yeah, thank you, Mau.
Thank you, Elmer. I
Thank
have
you, Mau.
okay. Thank you. I have a question naman. Medyo related pa rin to sa sinabi ni Sir Joey kanina, no, yung kahalagahan ng tao, no. The human as the weakest link. Okay. Zero trust, this is now a new mindset, no. Zero trust calls for a change of mindset. And what challenges should companies expect in a zero trust approach? I'd like to ask our security experts in the room to answer this. Maybe for the information of everybody, let's start with the definition of zero trust. Anyone from our security experts? We have Trend Micro, we have Fortinet.
Mau?
Yes, go ahead.
Yep. Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Sir Mau. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think yes, we have all been talking about zero trust. Actually, I think starting last year, since the pandemic started. Also,
Tina. Sorry to cut you off.
Yep.
I vividly remember I heard the zero trust line when I attended one of your vertical event, or rather one of your virtual events. So what's zero trust? And then I started reading. Please.
Yeah, zero trust, I think, in layman's term, it's just like how we treat the pandemic during the start of the pandemic. Like, you trust no one, so you don't allow anyone to enter your house unless they have RT-PCR negative, parang ganon. So with the zero trust model in cybersecurity, basically, we need to assess every entity, every asset. So that includes your workstations, your servers, your devices, your users, the user accounts. We assess them and make sure that they are risk-free. So they don't have any threats in place. The user accounts are not compromised before you allow them to enter your organization. So basically, not trusting anyone, zero trust. So that is the technology that I think everyone has been talking about these days.
All right. Thank you, Tina. Can you share with us some of the best practices of a zero trust model? You know, this is a change of mindset.
Yes, exactly.
Imagine not trusting anyone in your organization. So you implement multi-factor authentication. Yes. Do you have or can you share with us some of these best practices?
Yes, I think Sir Joey mentioned earlier, no, anytime we implement a new technology or a new strategy, planning is very important. So you mentioned this is a change of mindset. Implementing zero trust would require change of mindset. So planning is very important. I would say if we don't plan properly, especially with zero trust, magkakaroon talaga ng business disruption. So planning is number one. Second would be same, yung awareness for our people, awareness for the employees, for them to know how to use it, what it is all about. So end of day, they are the weakest link. So they need to know why we are implementing this and why this technology is important for them or this strategy. And thirdly, I think I would say very important is zero trust is a strategy. It's a philosophy. So there are a lot of technologies that would claim to have zero trust. So you have to choose the right technology that would fit your environment. Syempre, budget-wise, diba? Budget is one. But second is it should be something that would fit your infrastructure and would also fit how your users conduct their business on a day-to-day basis. So those three, parang pumapasok pa rin people, process, technology at the end of the day.
All right. Thank you. We have a question from Sir Anton Mon. What is your strategy? What is your strategy, if any? This is about zero trust. So again, planning. I think, Sir Anton, I hope na sagot ni Tina yung tanong mo, no?
Yeah. Planning and
Yes.
evaluating
Awareness,
the right tools.
yes. Planning, awareness, and evaluation of the right tools to implement. Okay, anyone from our expert would like to answer that question? A
Maybe,
representative from Fortinet.
Hi, I'm Frederick. Hello, good morning,
Yes, sir.
everyone.
Good morning.
Yes. So with our view on zero trust, actually zero trust by itself tells us that we shouldn't trust anything by default. So we need to have solutions that enable the posture checking of devices, for example, to be able to provide only the access needed specific by that user. So in traditional ways, we allow network access or allow users to access the company resources just based on he or she is an employee, able to access the company's resources. However, zero trust changes the perspective into a very, very granular access. For example, if I'm part of the engineering or IT, I should only be able to access the resources of my department and not other departments. Aside from that, of course, in the security point of view, we should also be able to scan or to be able to monitor the transactions, the traffics of any potential threat or potential indicators of compromise. So zero trust includes constantly checking for the user's identity and tallying it to the actual policy access. So there's a component where in the network side, you need to be able to create a policy that fits and only fits to that user's profile. And then on the device side, because these devices could be accessed from anywhere, basically. So we don't want our network or our resources to be a potential target, whether it be compromised credentials or perhaps an unauthorized access by perhaps a malware or any sort of attack. So zero trust helps company improve their security posture by having this kind of technology. We're actually quite lucky. This pandemic happened in this decade. Imagine if this pandemic happened 10 or 20 years ago, organizations and humanity as a whole would have a much more difficult time coping with the remote work, especially technology-wise.
Thank you, Frederick. Sir,
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead, Sir Joel.
Sige, let me complement their responses with HPE's point of view on this matter. We look at it from 3 layers. One layer is the hardware we deliver. We ensure from a security posture that the firmware that's in our box is not hackable. So we put in processes to implement that there are attempts to override copies of our firmware. And it's a continuous check. And within the box itself, from a supply chain perspective, we validate all the points of interaction with the box. So we are confident when the box gets to the customer, it's unhackable. That's why we got the federal rating for the US government for CSNA for that kind of security. Now, the next layer we're looking into is working with partners, including Fortinet and other ISV focused on security at the edge. but also on the level of application. We have what we call the HPE GreenLake Edge to Cloud platform. It's a platform that is secure because in the world of API-driven applications, users do not interact with a lot of applications. Instead, applications interact with other applications. So if you allow other organizations external to you interact with your data, interact with your applications, what kind of security posture will you put in place? Banks are going to this direction. They're opening APIs. So the question is, how do you know that the application getting into your organization, talking to your application, is really the application you want to talk to? There's a standard now that was put up, open standards called SPIFFE and SPIRE. These are techniques that allow an application using API to validate the identity of the application talking to this application. So it's a total stack security posture from the hardware to the security and the edge, as well up to the layer of applications. That's how HPE is looking at this aspect of security.
Thank you, Sir Joel. Sir Evgeny, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, actually, I think I would like to comment on the actual roots, how zero trust concept by itself actually appeared. And I think why it became important, there are two elements to it. Number one is effectively in the past, we used to have self-included on-premises style environment where we could put really nice perimeter of firewalls, network access and stuff like that. And we assume that this internal perimeter is always secure because we put this perimeter outside. But over the time, people started to use like cloud technologies. Data centers became like distributed across different locations and stuff like that. So, it became apparent that it's not enough just to secure perimeter. And also with the addition of pandemic as well, we have also our workforce is distributed across different locations as well, and they're trying to access the data. So it's not physically possible, even though things like firewalls mentioned before, it's still important element of architecture, like security architecture, but it's not enough. And so we have to secure every single possible access point, whatever it is, right? And one of the elements we talked before, like data security. Data is obviously the most desirable target by any hacker because they want to get access to it, and they want to get value out of this data. But that's something that is really important to protect. And to your earlier question, actually, you mentioned what tools people have to kind of improve data security by itself. Like for Oracle users, for people who uses Oracle database, we have like a free tool which is called Database Security Assessment Tool. Anybody can run it and quickly see what weak points particular database have today and what can be done to improve security of this particular instance.
All right, thank you, sir. Allow me to read this question from Sir Nestor Lim. How do you balance zero trust and maintaining flexibility and nimbleness of your organizations? Yep.
Yeah, look, I think it's a interesting question to answer because that balance is really hard to find. And one of the reasons, actually, the most secure database or most secure environment is an environment that nobody can access, which is disconnected from internet, right? And that's most secure environment, but nobody can make sense of it. Like zero trust concept by itself, I think it's not something that can be done overnight. It's not something that can be, create like tiger team and people just jump on it and they, put all blockers. It's a journey, and probably you will never, company probably would never be able to finish this journey because it's never ending journey. And that's something that companies need to realize because it's constant work, constant reinforcement, constant search for weak points in your overall architecture.
Thank you, sir.
Can I give it a try?
Yeah,
as
go
well?
ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah, so
please.
I'm from Aruba, right? So
Yes, yes,
so,
sir.
so security is actually, I agree with the previous speaker from Oracle. Security is actually not a product. It is a process. Security, and I like what you say, right? Security is not a destination, but a journey. So security really is actually everyone's business. Even after adopting zero trust framework, continuous education and raising awareness is necessary to ensure that everyone is kept abreast of the ever-changing threats. So, over my course of work, when I talk to customers, especially the CIOs, they always tell me, KH, when I invest in security, there is really no ROI. Right? There's no return on investment, because to them, when you implement security, what ROI do you really have, right? So I always tell them, right, investing in security is like investing in insurance. By the way, disclaimer, I'm not an insurance agent, but really think about it, right? For those of you who are still in the call, is that when you invest in insurance, you actually buy insurance when you least need it, because the moment you need insurance, it means that you are probably unwell or something is not right, and that's where you want to buy insurance. But then it is too late. Security implementation is the same thing as well. You don't implement security when there's a breach, because it is too late. You should implement security when things are in good shape, and that is where you should really be going. I introduced a terminology called RONI, repercussion of non-investment. Think about the repercussion of not investing in security, not investing in zero trust. How will this impact your network when the breach happens? And according to some report that I came across over my work, when a breach is being discovered, when someone actually hacked into your network, it takes generally about 200 days before that breach is being discovered. That 200 days means a lot. It means that potentially a lot of damage can be done without anyone realizing it. So hopefully that gives you some opinion from Aruba.
Thank you, sir.
Mal?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add to that, about zero trust. Like what everybody is saying, it's really a journey. And then whatever I mentioned earlier, zero trust is basically like protecting all kind of data points that you have.
Not just human access, but also application and devices.
Correct. So user access, application, data centers, clouds, whatever points that you can protect, right? As I mentioned earlier, but let's also not forget that while all of us here in this call or in this conference are thinking of innovative ways how to protect our data centers, the hackers and those geniuses outside are also thinking about how they can break our security on a day-to-day basis, right? So there you go, right? It's really a journey. It's going to be a non-stop challenge between us and them, right? On top of this, I just want to also mention that while we are doing this, we also have to look at the other side of the coin, which is really like protecting our data, maintaining our data integrity. Because when it happens, and if it happens, it's just a matter of time, right? I mean, I hope to God that it doesn't happen. But if it happens, you can revert back to some form of data, integrated data that you have kept somewhere, right? So it's a combination of different actions to really get your enterprise protected between those attackers that's trying to challenge our enterprise security day to day.
Right. Thank you, Elmer. Indeed, cyber criminals have evolved to be sophisticated and are now employing AI and machine learning to infiltrate corporate networks. I read an article last night. Ransomware has become a ransom as a service. Yes.
Yeah.
So how should organizations combat these advances? And in fact, hacking has become a multi-billion-dollar business. They also have their own research and development. How do we combat these advances?
Can I start with a comment on that?
Yeah, sure, Sir Joey.
So, yeah, when you talk about cyber criminals, I mean, this ransomware or whatever form of threat that they present, this is a software technology, right? So, and as long as it's a software technology, unfortunately, our customers will always be behind. We will always be behind. I mean, these are very advanced, very sophisticated software engineers that are doing this. I like to use this analogy, and it's not a very good, it's not a very pleasant analogy, but it's true. You know, the advances in video technology in the early days and even today is primarily being driven by porn. Porn drives it. It's not a very pleasant thing. It's not a very positive thing, but because of what they have to do to produce.
But sex sells.
Yes, it's a very lucrative thing, right? So the best, unfortunately, this is true. Being in the software industry myself, really the best and the brightest engineers all over the world are gravitating towards companies, towards jobs that directly contribute to the strength of the cyber criminal organizations. And now you've got the phenomenon, the state-sponsored cyber criminality. And that's even worse because now you're adding more resources. So as long as there are resources being invested on the dark side of this software industry, it's going to be very difficult for us to ever find a foolproof way of thwarting cyber criminals. That's my, again, and
thank you, sir.
But that's my,
it's
my
a
comment.
never-ending, it's a never-ending war.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead, sir, Joel.
On my keynote speech on Wednesday, HPE, I will talk about a way to recover fast. Because if you've done everything, but still it failed, how can you recover fast? There is a technology now that's getting popular, but not many have yet adopted it. It's called continuous data protection. In the past, it sounds so expensive to think of continuous data protection, where you are protected to the second. Because in the past, we're conscious of protecting how many hours or minutes. But we've come to the point that technology has advanced that we can recover from a second level of recovery. And I'll talk about that more on my keynote speech.
Perfect. Thank you, Sir Joey, for inviting them to attend, Sir Joel, for attending them to attend your track. Latter part of the panel discussion, I'll be giving everybody an opportunity to invite our audience to attend your track, and if you could just highlight the key takeaways of your presentation. But let me move on to this interesting question. This was also mentioned by Sir Joey a while ago. There is now a deluge of content in design, and immersive technologies blur the lines between physical and virtual. I'd like to address this question to Ms. Ula. Sir Nelson, how is your product changing the future of experiences, and how do you balance virtual and physical realms?
Okay, I should answer the first one, right?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good, interesting question. Given the fact that we are transitioning to the new normal, you know, we are all utilizing a hybrid setup. This would be a combination of, you know, this virtual and the physical engagement. And at Dell, we recognize this and has prepared accordingly. We develop products that enhance both virtual and physical engagement, such as, you know, we have our Dell peripherals, from our ultra-sharp monitors to our headset to ultra 4K camera, and we have the latest one, the portable monitors and the wireless headset. So we even have a solutions meeting, you know, the use of a collaboration monitor. So having these products really strikes balance between, you know, giving a maximum experience in both physical and virtual experience.
So consistency of experiences.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Sir Nelson, your thoughts, please.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. So from the Adobe's perspective, AR and VR is a big thing in terms of where it is going. If you look at the market cap for VR, they were saying it at 4.4 billion somewhere in 2020. But I think it is going to go up to 16.9 billion somewhere in 2026. So the important part over here is because of social media platform that has come and it is growing at a very fast pace. With COVID, the acceleration of content, people are trying to either work from home or work in a VR environment or create games and other stuff. But the content is growing. When the content grows so much, from a business point of view, if you are targeting something, then it becomes difficult. That means you need AI-driven and data features as well. What Adobe is coming up with is an AR platforms where you can actually create content. We are not creating devices, but you can bring in like 3D stuff, do texturing on top of it, and then send it out. Adobe also realizes the major part of the content comes from collaboration, co-editing videos. Either you're working from home or from office. But at the end of the day, the content that the designers and the creative people create needs to be used by the marketing team that needs to be delivered out. And for that to happen, they need to be able to review, collaborate, co-edit, and do a bit of PR as well at the end of the day. So I think there's also a positivity in that, which is called talent hiring. And I think in Manila, there's a lot of great talent, right? Now, if I want to hire a designer or I want to hire a creative guy or an AI guy, I can hire from wherever I want. But with that, the talent can be in any part of the world, but can deliver content at any part as long as collaboration, creativity is there when you do this job.
Thank you, sir.
Now,
Yes.
Yeah, no, here, let me just dovetail.
Yes,
to-
sir. I was about to call you. Yes.
I was reading your mind. Just kidding. No, but let me just dovetail to what Ula and Nelson have mentioned. So the beauty of today's technology and what's available right now, both on the hardware aspect and the software aspect, is that you're right. It's blurring the lines between reality and what's real and what's not. A lot of the customers that we work with actually use gaming for more innovative purposes. So let me give you an example. A lot of the infrastructure that's being built right now, believe it or not, are looking into AR and VR, into increasing the safety, not just for the stakeholders that deliver the actual project, but ultimately for the ultimate stakeholder, which is the public, right? I'll give you an example. The Bergen line in Europe was delivered by one of our customers, Norconsult, where they plugged in the model for a rail project in a gaming engine, and using the Unity engine, they were able to train the maintenance crews and even the train operators on how to make it a safer asset, not just for themselves, but for ultimately the riding public. So AR and VR, I think the question is more than striking a balance, but putting to good use where AR and VR can be applied.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. The digital world should what do you call this? Provide the experience to make sure that the real world is much appreciated.
Yes.
Can I add to that?
Yes, sir, Joel.
Through partnering with solution providers like Autodesk and other software supplier, Adobe and other providers in the manufacturing sector or in healthcare for training purposes, what we realize is customers asking us, we don't want to spend a lot of money doing this. Is there a way for us to consume this in a cloud-like way? Our answer is yes, we can. We can package all of this, deliver the capabilities that you want on a pay-per-use model on-prem, and we call it the HPE GreenLake platform. And I'll talk more about that on Wednesday. I'll just mention it today that we can package all of these solutions. Customers don't have to spend CapEx if they don't have the budget to do that, but they can spend pay-per-use delivering the same solutions using HPE GreenLake.
All right. Thank you, Sir Joel. We have a question from Sir Bernard Bertrand submitted in the chat panel. I'd like to ask Sir Jason to answer this. Too many solutions, so little budget, and setting up a security and or IT solution is becoming too costly. How can we help the SMBs to mitigate such risks and comply with government regulations? Sir Jason, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So I think it's a good question regarding the SMB business. Means because I think lots of speakers talk about well-planned and also it's a long journey. But for small business, they don't have such technology team to prepare themselves to find with the other side. So I would say, firstly, maybe cloud is the foundation for them, because cloud, you can imagine cloud is how you implement your IT in a more agile way. So so you can leverage the cloud and also the SaaS solutions on top of cloud to help your business. Second, I think one trend is we call data as a service. So which means you no need to build your whole bunch of solutions or AI solution by yourself, but try to work with the data as a service provider like Snowflake to build your own insight. I think so for small business is more like how you join the ecosystem, not by yourself, but also join the big ecosystem, for example, the public cloud or other vendors together as an alliance to fight to improve your security. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Sir Jason. And thank you for the segue to cloud, because my next question is about a cloud. Anyone from anyone from our panel can answer this. We have seen an unprecedented adoption of cloud in the wake of COVID crisis. In fact, it has saved a lot of organizations. Do you see any challenges with the rush? Everybody moved to the cloud. Are we prepared to address this transformational change of skill sets particularly?
Yeah, may I add my 2 cents?
Go ahead, Sir Jason. Yeah, Alibaba is a front runner in cloud e-commerce particularly. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So when we see the adoption to cloud, especially the pandemic, we see two phases. Phase 1 is lockdown. No matter, I think different countries have different waves, but in general, phase 1 is lockdown. Phase 2 is reopen. So during the lockdown phase, we do say it's during the pandemic. Lots of business are impacted heavily by the pandemic, and some business can open, continue remotely, but unfortunately, a lot of business are impacted heavily. So in that case, so the organization had no time to design a very comprehensive cloud adoption plan. Instead, they have to turn to adopt the cloud in a straightforward way, which means they have to solve their problem as soon as possible, because the traditional on-premise solution or deployment cannot be complete in weeks, but they have to fix on their problem solving immediately. So I just gave you 2 examples in remote education area. So when the pandemic happened in January 2020, there are lots of Chinese students who are from Australian or European universities. They are still in China for the 2020 Spring Festival. But due to the lockdown, they cannot go back to normal to back to the school. So for those universities, they have to launch the online training, online education service as soon as possible. And in a very short period, Alibaba Cloud, we have around 33 Australian universities and 22 European universities to launch their remote education services online by providing our cross-region connection and our last mile network acceleration, global acceleration, and also firewall to secure the whole solution. So in average, every university can launch their solution in 1 week. So this is very agile, I mean, compared with the traditional approach. So another sample I can give is the primary school in China. So during the pandemic, there's around 140,000 schools, 3 million classes, 3.5 million teachers, and 130 million students have used DingTalk to perform their online classes. So in the peak time, more than 100 million online meetings, DingTalk online meetings to be held every day. But to support such huge workload, it's almost impossible to extend in the on-premise environment. So DingTalk, they extend more than 100,000 cloud servers in Alibaba Cloud to support this workload. So these are 2 samples I gave during the lockdown period. Regarding the reopen, I would say, I think a lot of speakers said working from home is becoming a new normal, and zero trust is becoming a new normal requirement. I mean, everybody talking about zero trust. So Alibaba Cloud, we offer our virtual desktop service. So to support the enterprise to support a new working style, working from home. And this service is also deployed in our new open Philippine region. And also regarding the zero trust, so we offered quite a lot security services or solutions on our public cloud, including our anti-DDoS, ID as a service, security center, quite a lot. And lastly, I want to share is, during the reopen, I think it's more like the customer is more like to embrace or adopt cloud in a collaborative way, which means, so one is due to the pandemic, it's created urgency that everyone, they should focus on their own expertise and collaborate with each other to support, offer the total solution to the end user. So for customer, for Alibaba Cloud, our focus is cloud infrastructure, I mean infrastructure as service. And we open the SaaS and lots of PaaS space to our technical partners like Fortinet, Aruba, VMware. I think lots of speakers in this event as well, to offer total solutions to the end users. So in summary, the journey of the cloud adoption, I think is really accelerated by the pandemic. And Alibaba Cloud is very more than happy to work with our technical partners to offer the total solution and to help to address the transformation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, Jason. Anyone from our panel who'd like to?
Mr. Mao. Oh,
okay,
go
go ahead, Christina.
Oh, okay. Since you talk about cloud and of course the skill sets. So one of the main challenges that we are seeing is actually cloud misconfiguration. And just in 2018 and 2019, we see that the cost for security related breaches for cloud misconfiguration is around $5 trillion. So that much. And it's actually 65 to 70% of security challenges on the cloud is related to misconfiguration. So it's also related, cybersecurity challenges in the cloud and the skill sets that you have mentioned because of the rush. Are we missing the right skill sets? And of course, lastly is, auditing and making sure that once we implement this new infrastructure, everything is properly configured and properly monitored. So that's one thing
that
that we have seen.
challenge has been further amplified during the cloud rush, because again, as mentioned by Sir Jason a while ago, amid the pandemic, there was this massive acceleration to the cloud, with really thinking of the necessary skills to be able to support once your business is in the cloud.
Sorry. You mentioned that there's a cloud rush, especially during this pandemic. And I think also one of the challenges that we have seen is the right skill sets. I think in every organization, we have seen that the cloud, the implementation of cloud infrastructure or technology, it is also a journey, just like Zero Trust, just like any other strategy and technology that we are implementing.
Thank you.
Can I comment also on that?
Okay, Sir Joel, just give me a sec. I'd like to.
Okay.
We actually have several attendees from the academe. We have invited IT educators, members of Philippine Society of IT Educators to attend this summit. Let's take this moment to plant the seeds early. Okay, so we can definitely make a difference, empower the young minds with the right skills. If we want to be successful in the future, let's do it now. Go ahead, Sir Joel.
I'd like to share the challenges on the cloud journey. There's a contrasting journey happening now. 5 years ago, the early cloud adapters, public cloud adapters, already went all the way public cloud, whichever provider that is, whether AWS, Google Cloud, or Microsoft's Azure. They took that strategy. Don't keep data centers, bring everything to the cloud, data as well as applications. Guess what? 3 years later, they're coming back. They are repatriating the applications. So now we have here now a new batch of businesses rushing to the public cloud. And soon, if history will repeat itself in 2 years, 3 years, they'll be going back, primarily because driven by, not just by skills, business, bill shock. So in HPE, we are believers in hybrid. We're not competing with the public cloud. We're telling customers, we can help you decide which application goes to the public cloud, which application are best on a private cloud, consume on the pay-per-use model called HPE GreenLake platform. So rather than going gung-ho to the public cloud and then screeching break, hey, what will we do with all this cost? It's now ballooning. So that's how we will approach this. It's better to start off initially, learn from the experience of the early cloud adapters who are now repatriating their application, but not everything, just some of those applications that are not fit for the public cloud. So for the new batch of early adapters, they need to figure out, is this the application we really need to bring to the public cloud to take advantage of the strength of the public cloud, or we just want the experience of the public cloud? That is, we can consume the apps, the infra in a pay-per-use basis. Here in the Philippines, we got lots of customers where we package VMware, an application like Oracle or SAP, with our hardware on a pay-per-use basis. So they don't pay CapEx, they pay as they use. They get billed 1 month after they use it. So if this is what the customers are looking for, a way to consume infrastructure on a pay-per-use basis, you don't have to go to the public cloud unless it's really fit for your application. That's just my comment.
All right. Can I add something to it as well? So I have something on a personal note, right? So with Adobe, I've met with the whole of Southeast Asia customers, and I've been with Adobe for 13 years. I've met commercial as well as education customers. And when I look at education, there are key challenges, right? The kids, we tell them to go online to the class, and then they start filling and doing their homework online, right? And there's a valid question that came from my own son. He says that, why should I write anything when I can key everything on my, my tablet or my laptop and get it done? Why should I start writing? So their skills of collaborating with other students and working with other students are widely affected, is what the teachers tells us. That when they come back, now when they are back in school a bit, I can see that the way they collaborate, where they talk, where they want to do things, there's a bit of a friction, right? They don't want to mingle with each of them like how they used to. So there are some skills that will be lost if you all start to do things based on home base. And working on the creative environment, you can do most of your things online with collaborative tools, but there's also places in which you might have to meet your team weekly once or twice, just to make sure that you are in touch or you're in sync with what you're trying to do. So that's just a take from my side as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sir Nelson. Anyone?
Yeah,
Hi, Frederick again here.
All right, sir. Go ahead, Frederick.
Yeah, so on cloud, actually, with the cloud services like AWS, Azure, and the other cloud providers, what we see actually is a shared responsibility model. That means these cloud providers provide the compute, the resources necessary to run our customers or your environment or your service. However, in terms of the security, it's actually the responsibility of the customer to have those solutions in place. So actually, this is why 14 has partnered with the cloud providers to provide the security portion of cloud. Like, for example, being able to deploy a firewall in the cloud, web application firewall, or cloud workload protection. So these actually are solutions that enable us to reduce the attack surface, potential attack surface of putting your applications in the cloud. So with our solution, actually, we're able to provide the customer the security they need, whether it be in a pure cloud environment or a hybrid environment. What we see actually is more of a hybrid environment, because there are some roadblocks for some customers. For example, like the residency of the data. It should be, for example, on-premise. So we cannot actually. It's much easier said than done that the customer will totally migrate to the cloud. In reality, it takes a long time, and actually there are some things that cannot be put into the cloud. So actually, as a company, Fortinet enables customer to secure not only the premises, or not only the cloud, even the endpoint or the user themselves in their devices. So what we can offer is actually end-to-end security service across those environments.
Thank you. Thank you, Frederick. Again, as a technology enabler, technology provider, it is also our role to educate our customers, guide their journey, and such that the future would be much, much safer. Sir Nelson, you mentioned about a while ago about risks. I have this question about automation. Human work is continuously being reinvented, particularly with the introduction of automation and artificial intelligence. What challenges do you see in employment of human labor, and how should businesses use technologies to create jobs rather than displace traditional workforce?
So it's a very good question. The thing is, now most of the companies are going for automation and AI-driven features. Adobe itself has spent a lot of money on trying to create tools for the designers in terms of how they can actually do their work faster and create much more content at a rapid pace. So if you look at today's world, artificial intelligence is very important, because before, like might be like a decade back, when you launch a product, you are just doing it for a website, right? And might be you just started creating some of the mobile app, but your target now is all the social media platforms, right? So how do you create one content which is standardized, and how does it map across all the various different platforms, right? You need to make sure that your content is synchronized throughout different platforms. How do you make it? And AI driven features and machine learning helps to make sure that you can automate some of these processes. You do not have to manually stick and do this. Adobe promotes people to be more creative, so they spend time being more creative rather than do the same tedious job again and again. It's the same thing, which a computer can actually fill for you and fit the requirement for that.
Thank you. I think the creative aspect of humans can't be replaced with machine.
Not the creative
Not
minds.
necessarily.
Not necessarily the creative minds. The thing is, like, just imagine, for example, if I want to cut right now a person out from an image, right? Before, the tool that used to do that used to take might be an hour, 2 hours to do it. What if I can just say, Sensei or AI, just one click of a button, remove the person out from that image? So it comes out for you, rather than you, because you need to cut it out. That's not creativity. He's just removing something out. And if you feel that you have a footage where you need to put a logo in on a truck or a movie,
you can personalize content
right
in a jiffy.
Right. You need to make sure that the content is there on your fingertips. You just imagine, I feel that I need to have a blue color logo or a blue color image that goes with my current image. And what do I currently do? I will start searching or try to create a photograph or do things. But you see, you already know what you want. That is creativity. And to search for something that takes 3-4 hours or get somebody's help, that's waste of time.
I was about to say that's stupidity.
No, that's waste of time. That's not.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Nelson. Sir Joel, you've always mentioned the importance of data. Okay, so let me ask you this question. I'd like to invite all of our panelists. Please feel free to share with us your thoughts. How important is data resilience? And why should businesses strive to be data resilient? What makes an enterprise data resilient?
Let me put some of my comments. Data resilience is important, because if not, imagine the brand image hit. When you're on the front page of the news, you've been breached, your data was stolen, or you became a victim of ransomware. So there must be a way for the business, if they fall into this scheme by cyber criminals, to be able to recover fast and not be blackmailed by this event. That's one. A second is financial costs, operational disruption. Can anybody go back to manual again? But you don't have the data anymore. You don't have paper data. Everything now is digital. So that's why it's very important that customers are data resilient. But that's not even during incidents where cyber criminals are involved. It also involves operational people. I've seen customer lapses in my more than 30 years in the IT industry. I've seen customers who are lax in backup. For example, there's this retail customer called me up to visit their site. Why? Because their database server went down. The disk could not be revived, and everything was in that disk. So when I asked them, okay, we have disruption, where's the backup? Nobody knows where the backup is. Until someone remember, oh, I have a backup at home. Then we waited for this guy. He came back, and How old is that backup? 3 months ago. So how can the retail continue operating with the restored data 3 months old? So this is a serious issue of data resilience. There was this another customer. I've got lots of our story, just tell two. He was supposed to back up their database server. This is a bank, but it's not a big bank. But he has a date at 7 p.m., the backup operator. The backup did not finish at 7, but he has to go for the date. So what did he do? He aborted the backup and went on a date. Guess what happened that evening? Somebody allowed a carpenter to fix something inside the computer room, throwing dust all around. Guess what happens the following morning? The server won't boot, of course. Now the manager told the backup operator, okay, that's not a problem. We still have time. Where's the backup? Okay, now we really have a problem. So data resilience is not just when cyber criminals attack our data infrastructure. It also involves operations, people we trust to do their share to protect the data. So that's why it's very important to look at technology, process, and people. It's not just a point product you buy and it will fix things. That's not how we look at it from HPE. We need
Thank
to
you,
look
sir.
at the entire landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. So technology, process, and people. Sir Arnie, your
Yes.
thoughts, please.
Yes, thank you, Mao. Well, the way I view it, while data resilience is really extremely important, well, customers have a lot of data, and oftentimes what I normally tell a lot of my customers is not all data are created equal. So with that in mind, what I often recommend to them is we need to match the business requirement with the protection that we provide them. Eventually, in the end, businesses will look at it, will look at the cost of protection. I've seen a lot of questions zooming in on the cost. Ang mahal naman yan, all those things, kaya di bali na lang. No?
But can you afford the risk?
That is exactly what I often show my customers. So depending on the application, some are more important. Maybe put a higher protection with that. So there's so many things when it comes to data resilience. This will actually circle back to our earlier discussion on business continuity and disaster recovery. So there are component protection and there are this remote protection. So all of these things we take into consideration and we provide what I would like to call the most appropriate solution for every customer. So it's not a one size fits all. So depending on what they need, that is what we will provide them. At the same time, just like what you mentioned, Mao, can they afford it? Well, one is we need to show them the impact to the business. We've spoken about ransomware a lot of times for the past hours. So I think if I'm not mistaken, maybe our friends from the security side of things can correct me. But what I've seen is, on the average, it's costing around $2 million as the ransom. So if we present it that way, it's just like insurance, just like what I think Joey mentioned earlier. If they pay maybe not even half the price of what a hacker would actually ask them for ransom, maybe if we view it that way, if we present it that way, the view of the customer management would be a lot different. But then again, I do agree, data resilience is very important. Everyone is saying data is the new gold, it's the new oil. It's actually the lifeblood of any organization. So it needs to be protected at all costs at any instance. That's my view.
Well,
Thank
can
you,
I-
Sir Arnie. I'd like to ask Sir TK from Aruba. HPE Aruba, yes. Sir, data is everywhere, streamed and accessed from multi-location, multi-devices, and multiple users. I think this was again further amplified during the pandemic. What challenges do this create in data collection, management, and analytics?
Thank you for the question. That is a very tough question for me. So primarily what happened is, can you hear me? I hope you can.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah,
Loud
so
and clear, yes.
I'm going to give one example of a retail customer here that I've seen in the region. I won't mention the name because of sensitivity. So in this case, what this customer did was they actually have a customer loyalty program, and you can't actually put customer data, in this case, they don't because of the data sovereignty that we are seeing. They can't put that, into the cloud. So they are actually hosting some of this data, in the on-prem, and the other non-critical application are actually moved to the cloud. And what happened is, for those remote user, that's where they actually allow the customers to be able to, they allow the employee for those non-critical application to go to the cloud and then have, security being inspected by the cloud delivered security vendor like Zscaler and Netscope. And then for those, customers' critical data will then, be transmitted via the MPLS link back to the corporate headquarters to allow access. The reason why that was being done primarily was also because MPLS allowed them to have, guaranteed SLA as compared to indirect, those direct broadband link that doesn't give you any guaranteed connectivity or security. So what happened is, so this customer actually moved that, security customers' data into the the data center that they hosted with security in mind, with next gen firewall that they purchased from some of the known vendors, and then for the rest of the other non-critical application, they move it to the cloud and let it inspect by other good brand of cloud security vendor. So that is my view.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask this last question before we are going to have a short break for lunch. I'd like to invite all of our panelists, after answering this question, feel free to invite our audience to attend your track. And yeah, thank you, Sir Joel, for answering the question submitted by Sir Anton, which is more important, data resilience or data security. So let me now ask you guys, again, I'd like to ask all of our panelists to answer this. Harnessing the value of data, because I think this relates to all of the solutions that you provide. Harnessing the value of data, be it big data or fast data, begins with a modern data infrastructure. Any advice on how and where should SMEs and SMBs start? Let me start with you, Sir Arnie.
Thank you, Mao. So for us in Huawei, we actually engage with all sorts of customers, from the enterprise to the SMBs. So regardless of the customer, what we often mention, if you will take a look at the IT industry, data analytics and machine intelligence all started becoming extremely important nowadays. It's simply because a lot of the technology is ready for it. We need a fast technology that will be able to analyze all those data that is coming in. So for us, what we often mention is always look at considering an all-flash infrastructure. A lot of wrong perception has been created whenever all-flash is mentioned, simply because in the olden days, all-flash is 10, 20, even 30 times more expensive than traditional. But with a lot of other things that you can do, there's actually a balance, and it will turn out to be, in fact, if I may use the term, less expensive in the long run. So all-flash is going to be mainstream. Prices keep going down. Data will continue to be exponential, and it is going to be very important. If you want to have that fast analysis, you have to have an infrastructure that should be able to accommodate it. Okay. And by the way, since you mentioned earlier to invite us, to invite the audience for tomorrow. So tomorrow will be zooming in on the importance of data reliability and accessibility within the Zero Trust framework. So I will talk about how data assets have increasingly been becoming more and more important, and malicious attacks have steadily increased to 50% in 2020. So I will discuss how to protect data and to ensure that data access services are always online and legally compliant. So that will be the main focus of my session for tomorrow.
Yeah, to add on what Arnie mentioned, no, about using Flash, the AI ML infrastructure, from VMware perspective naman, we want to mention that perhaps SMEs, SMBs can start looking at, leveraging on the GPU infrastructure that we can enable in using vSphere, VMware vSphere, to process AI ML applications without, big upfront spending. You're just leveraging on the GPUs of your servers, and that, as we all know, GPU is really designed for those fast reaction, fast processing activities. Yeah, thank you.
Can I add on
Thank
that?
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Elmer, please go ahead, Sir Joel.
Well, one of the frequent advice we get from our consultants regarding this aspect is that first, don't throw away data. Store and curate it. In the early days, when some of my customers are building big data lakes and I ask them, why are you doing this? They couldn't explain why. They just want to keep it. But now I realized that was a good thing. That's where you start. You need data, you need historical data, so that when you finally need to write applications that mine that data, you will have the insight that you need based on how the business performed in the past, and use that on AI and ML to predict what can happen in the future. So that's a basic advice. Start keeping your data, curate it, and then write the applications that will flush the insight from your data.
Thank you, Sir Joel. Sir Nelson, your thoughts, please.
I think people all look at data differently, and I feel data is key in marketing segmentation as well. And I would I think everybody has covered all the different points, but I would like to say that data is key to growing your business, the key factor in that. And if you want to have a targeted customers, knowing your data, understanding your data is a key part to it as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Let me take a step on it as well.
Yeah,
So
please.
I hear you guys talking about big data and how fast the data is. I want to give my perspective on how also, when we have data in the cloud, we also have to take note that most of the traffic that is happening in the cloud, especially those data centers that is in the cloud, the traffics are primarily east-west traffic. And how do we actually do, security on those traffic? Those are also equally important as well. So Aruba, we do have a partner with, one vendor, Pensando, who, we co-developed a solution 2 years ago, and we just recently announced it out last year, October, where we can actually do, deep packet inspection of data that is being, east-west traffic that is hosted in the data center. So tomorrow I'll be talking about some of this technology that Aruba have, brought to the market. So I encourage all the audience, 852 of you here, to actually join the keynote tomorrow, where I will address one of the topic on data security for the data center as well.
Thank you, sir. To our audience, if you could just please use the Q&A window for your questions so that we can properly monitor if our panelists have already answered your questions. Otherwise, in the chat window, it's going to be tasking for us to check the answers and monitor your questions as well. Kindly please, if you could just copy and paste them and submit them on the Q&A window. Sir Noah, please, your thoughts.
Yeah, again, we're in the business of enabling people to create a better world. So through our tools like CAD, modeling, nowadays people now have the ability to create richer data right? Which can be used for different aspects. Gone are the days where somebody is just creating CAD and it stays in somebody else's desk, right? So we're going to talk about the digital twin paradigm and how easy it is to actually share information from one stakeholder to another all throughout the project life cycle, cradle to grave, end to end. So it includes aspects around cloud, it includes aspects around automation. The practice has already evolved for content creators or engineers and designers and modelers. So if you want to learn more about this, I invite you to join our conversation about how Autodesk has evolved the future of making. Thanks, Mal.
Thank you, Sir Frederick.
Hi, Mal. Yes. So with the data, I think that was discussed today. I think what we can offer or talk about is actually this data has a lot of sources. So it could be server, it could be devices. There needs to be a singular platform to collect this data. Mentioning before about the data lake. So actually, employing solutions such as an SIEM or SIM would be able to monitor not only the actual transaction, but logs pertaining to these devices that are in the network's infrastructure. For example, performance related like CPU utilization, memory utilization, uptime, and other security incidents, for example. So all of this needs to be classified properly, collected properly, and the most important thing is make sense of all this information and logs, so that the organization will be able to react properly, to adapt to the current situation and the upcoming situation based on the data that are being recorded. So this is actually one of the topics that also I'm going to talk about this coming Thursday. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you there.
Great. Thank you. Miss Ula, your thoughts, please.
Oh, okay. So, while data opportunity for growth, it's often overlooked, right? So unstructured data is a problem. So there are like around 30% companies, as I read, from our internal research, that they are identify themselves as data-driven, and they always use this to maximize ROI. So there are few companies who utilizing the data, but the PE professional who leverage on portfolio company data will find themselves with fierce advantage over competitors, and advantage that leads to outsizing anticipated investment outcomes. So I will talk about tomorrow the data analytics impact. So I'd like to invite you to attend Empowering Innovation with Dell Precision. We will give you some insights on companies that need to deliver ROI and maximum returns using this data analytics.
Perfect. Thanks, you.
Mal.
Yes, thank you. Sir Evgeny, please, your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Maurice. Yeah, look, I think one of the elements we sort of didn't touch in this conversation when we talk about fast data is, so fast data by itself, by definition, produces lots of data from different sort of devices, different sources. But biggest challenge here is how to make sense of this data, right? And what technology to use to understand it and understand it in time. That's what
Sir, sorry, if you could just please quickly differentiate big data and fast data.
Look, effectively, it's to some degrees interchangeable terms, right? So whatever information we store in big data style of workload, as big data style of workload, it's actually coming from the multiple sources, which can be anything. It can be some sort of electrical meters, for example, or some sort of devices for smart cities or things like that. So yeah, I think it's different pockets of technologies, but they closely related. But I actually wanted to comment on some other aspect of it. effectively, to make this data useful and meaningful, there are two critical elements here. One is the data has to be, we should be able to access this data in a consistent manner, which means when somebody requests for this data, they have to come consistent with the context of this particular operation. Because, for example, if you're looking for a customer who is located in certain location at certain address in the distance, like say for 5 kilometers from the CBD, and with certain attributes, we have to be quick and get this result when this customer is located in this particular location. If we run it like 5 seconds later, data gonna be irrelevant. That story also related to businesses' classic data, which would they store in regular database. So these data sets, it's really hard to relate like new paradigm with what businesses know about customers from the past. And another thing also, which is also related to fast data, is concurrency. So when we work with larger data sets, and often this part is overlooked when application is being designed, people like do certain tests. When we need to have many users, and actually pandemic showed it quite well, and many users need to access the same data set, database workloads, anything data related has to be accessible concurrently without compromise of performance. And that relates back to our previous conversation, like data resiliency. So if our platform or infrastructure cannot deliver results in time with a decent level of performance, that effectively affects our data resiliency strategy.
Thank you, Sir Atin. Can we have your recommendation, please?
I've been looking at the question actually. So,
All right.
actually, from a cybersecurity perspective, I would say that whatever infrastructure or decision that these SMEs or SMBs would take on in terms of dealing with big data or fast data, they have to keep security on top of their mind, because this is also where threat actors will start their activities. And just like in Trend Micro, we are using big data and fast data. So that would be one of the key technologies that we will also be talking about, like it's being used by our XDR solution. So tomorrow we'll have our XDR and zero trust model. So hope you guys can tune in so that we can share more of how we can use zero trust and XDR as a security strategy for every organization.
I'll be there. I'll be attending your track.
Thank you, sir.
Because I'll be hosting. Okay, thank you, Christina. Again, yep, let's not compromise. Regardless if it's big data or fast data, do not compromise security. So you need to protect data, the human resource, and your organization as well. Sir Jason, please.
Yeah, so before I address this question, I want to say regarding the public cloud and hybrid cloud topic. I think Joe just mentioned that, yeah, it's not necessary to put every workload to public cloud. Yeah, that's true. And that's also Alibaba cloud philosophy. So we do agree that the customer, no matter what size or what industry, they should consider to put the proper workload to public cloud, and some keep in the private cloud. So hybrid cloud is definitely the nature of cloud. I mean, it's more like a distributed cloud environment, no matter you call public or private. So secondly, regarding the big data or fast data especially for SME. So usually, it's very hard for an SMB to set up their own data lake solution together. it's really, you need to put a lot of investment, GPU, and also ensure to modelize your middleware quickly. So usually what we observe is, so usually no matter the big or small customer, they usually intend to set up their data quite a few advantages, like the cost effectiveness. They can have as much as GPU they need when they need and when they on demand. Also, in the cloud, it's more like the nature to integrate everything together. No matter your data is from IoT or from the traditional tape, it's very easy to put your data, especially your historical data, in cloud in a very cost-effective way. So we have quite a few customers who move their PB level data from tapes to our OSS in frequency archive storage. That is very common. So they can leverage the cloud's and also the able to ensure their data can be still there in a very cost efficient way. So go back to the question itself. We do believe to modernize the infrastructure, public cloud is one of the major approach for the SMB. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Sir Jason. Please go ahead, Sir Evgeny, and answer the question.
Yeah, thanks, Maurice. Yeah, I thought there was a good question in the Q&A section about data governance strategy, and I thought it would be good to mention what can be done here. So I think there are a number of elements, and again, we're talking here about like how zero trust concept applies to like a data security element. And here we can do like a few things to improve our posture in terms of data security. So one is we should minimize attack surface by whatever means. And what I mean by this is, for example, in pretty much every company has a test and dev environments. We should ask ourselves a question. So what sensitive data do I have in this test and dev environments? And do I need this sensitive data in there? So potentially technologies like data masking can be used to avoid using sensitive data in test and dev environments. And then next element would be encryption. So we use encryption to protect data wherever it's stored, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem data center. Data has to be encrypted, and so we sort of minimize possibility for attackers to steal the data. And what is also related to encryption, how do we manage encryption keys, and do we store them separately from the data set? It's another element of it. So in addition to encryption, also a key element of data security and governance in terms of data management is constant monitoring. So we assess how configuration changes, what is users' behaviors, how users' roles and permissions inside the database changes. So all of this can be done, and it's not as difficult to accomplish. And like from Oracle side, we provide a number of tools like data safe and database firewall, which can help to automate identification of those different behaviors and warn your administration personnel in time. And why it's important, so sooner we know about some anomaly in activity, sooner we can act and potentially block that activity. Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, this is just a prelude to the many things we can gain from this year's Tech Summit 2022. I hope today's panel discussion, we were able to tickle some of your curiosities. Thank you. I'll see you